I never expected to return home to find my son with a black maid unraveling a life-changing secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stepped through the front door, feeling a sense of relief wash over me after a long day. But the moment I heard laughter, a bubbling kind of joy coming from the living room, my heart stopped. It wasn't just my son's voice. No. It was deep, musical, and completely foreign. I blinked, trying to shake off the chill creeping up my spine. As I approached, parts of me, a mother, a protector, began to shatter. There she was. A striking woman. Dark skin glowing like polished mahogany, hair cascading in tight curls. Her laughter rang in the air, sweet yet mischievous. My breath hitched. I barely recognized the scene unfolding before me. My son, Charlie, seated on the carpet, surrounded by a whirlwind of toys, was beaming with delight, a joy I had never seen. They were sharing secrets, laughing like old friends. But I had never seen this woman before. Where did she come from? Mom! Charlie exclaimed, springing up and racing towards me. His eyes sparkled, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. You won't believe it. This is Clara. She is the coolest person ever. I forced a smile. Hey, sweetie, my voice wobbled, cracked like glass. What are you doing with her? Clara stood in the background, her joyous demeanor slipping for just a fraction of a second. I could sense a tension hanging between us, charged like static before a storm. I noticed the deep lines around her mouth, the hint of uncertainty in her eyes, the way she fiddled with the hem of her apron. No maid I imagined wore such a carefree smile, yet here she was, in the midst of my childless laughter, like a flower blossoming in a desert. The air felt thick. The silence stretched heavy, suffocating. I forced myself to take a step forward, curious and cautious. Clara, how did you meet him? Her answer was swallowed by silence, her face twisting in a strange mix of apprehension and something else. Was it fear? I didn't quite catch the glimmer in her eyes, something that felt almost dangerous, like a secret tightly held. And then came the bell, echoing through the house like a slow heartbeat. It was the doorbell. The kind of summons that felt eerily timed, almost foreboding. Clara glanced at the door, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of fear draw across her face. Stay here, Charlie, I whispered, even as my heart drummed a warning. I moved to the door, dread pooling low in my stomach, sweat beading on my brow. As I turned the knob, a chill raced down my spine. I had no idea what or who was waiting on the other side. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As I opened the door, a rush of wind swept past me, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of rain and something else, an unsettling aroma of uncertainty. There stood a man, tall and imposing, with lines etched deep across his forehead, his sharp eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my blood run cold. Mrs. Harlow? He asked, his voice low and gravelly. Yes, I replied, confusion fueling the fire in my throat. My instinct wanted to slam the door shut, to wrap Charlie in my arms, but fear held me rooted to the spot. I'm Detective Lawson, he said, glancing back over his shoulder as if expecting someone else to appear. I need to speak with you about your son. At that moment, Charlie, curious and unaware of the building tension, sidled up beside me, his small hand clutching the fabric of my skirt. The detective knelt, and in his presence, the world felt unsteady, as though the ground beneath my feet could crumble away at any moment. Charlie, buddy, can you go find your toys in the living room? I urged, forcing a smile, my mind racing to process the vivid fear wrapped around my heart. Okay, Mom. He said, his voice light, but I saw his brows furrow in confusion as he scurried away. Are you looking for Charlie? I pressed, my voice trembling. What about him? Detective Lawson took a measured breath before speaking. We received an anonymous tip-off about potential neglect. His gaze burned into mine, relentless and unyielding. Neglect? What are you talking about? I shot back defensively, but there was an inkling of doubt creeping in. My mind raced through the memories of Charlie's latest bouts of sadness, the way he seemed to retreat within himself, the silence that sometimes enveloped our home after the divorce. I'm here to ensure the safety of your son, he continued, the weight of his words pressing down on my chest. We've had reports concerning the care he is receiving. Panic surged within me. But he is happy. You should have seen him just now. He was with Clara. She is amazing. She is Clara? Yes. She has been. My voice faltered as doubt snaked its way into my heart. Plugging into his world in a way I couldn't tell. Lawson's expression softened slightly, a glimmer of empathy breaking through the stoic facade. I just need to ensure everything is all right. Can I see Clara? Just then, the laughter of children faded into silence. My heart raced, the air growing colder as I turned towards the living room. Clara? I called, my voice laced with urgency. The worst scenarios danced through my mind as I rushed to the carpet. She wasn't there. The room was empty, Charlie's toys strewn about like an afterthought. Where did she go? I asked, panic bubbling to the surface. Charlie. He appeared at the doorway, eyes wide. Clara just disappeared, Mom. I was playing and she was here, and then she just left. I felt a wave of nausea crash onto me, the walls of our world closing in like a vice. Why had she left? Why hadn't I noticed? Charlie, stay here. Please. I stepped into the kitchen, frantically looking for any sign of her. The door to the backyard had swung wide open, swaying gently in the breeze. For a moment, I hesitated, considering the darkness beyond the threshold, the growing dusk wrapping around our home. Then the detective's voice drew me back. Mrs. Harlow, it's vital that I speak with Clara. She might know something important, something that could. Before he could finish, I screamed, I don't care. You can't take her away from him. The fury in my voice was born of fear, a desperate need to defend what little stability my child had. Mrs. Harlow, this is not about taking anyone. We just need to ensure your son is safe. I thought of the joy Clara had sparked in Charlie, the giggles swirling in the air like syrup. Was that joy worth risking the unknown? Clara, is she as good for him? She cares. Suddenly, the sound of gravel crunching underfoot outside interrupted me, the clenching darkness of the surrounding evening only adding to the tumult in my heart. A car door slammed somewhere in the distance, with my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked once more to Charlie. He stood, gazing at me with an innocence that twisted like a knife in my gut. Detective Lawson stepped closer, his expression softening further. You need to trust me. If she is good for him, she won't mind speaking with us. It's for his welfare. I felt hollow, caught between the worlds of protecting my child and the staggering fear of losing him to a world I barely understood. The door creaked ominously behind me, a small whisper of the past trying to drag me back. And then, just as I lowered my head to make sense of the whirlwind around me, a figure emerged from the shadows outside the door. Shadows danced against Clara's silhouette, draped in what appeared to be dark clouds of night and uncertainty. She stood there, poised yet vulnerable, clutching something close to her, her face carrying the weight of untold secrets. The air froze, charged with unspoken truths, and I instinctively reached for my child, my heart racing as whatever frail foundation I had started to crumble. Clara! The air, heavy with expectancy, stretched out in front of me, and my throat tightened as Clara took a hesitant step into the light filtering through the doorway. The shadows didn't just obscure her figure, they cloaked her in uncertainty, a painful reminder of all that had become tangled in our lives. Clara, where have you been? My voice cracked, desperate yet tender, as I fought against the tempest brewing within me. She held up a small, crumpled paper in her delicate fingers, but she didn't answer me right away. Instead, her gaze flickered between Charlie and the detective, apprehension etched deep across her features. It was a helpless expression, one I had seen before when she first arrived, unsure of her new surroundings and the bond that she had unwittingly begun to weave with my son. Clara! I tried again, urgency pushing me closer. The paper trembled, and I couldn't quite discern the emotions dancing in her eyes. Is everything okay? Finally, she took a breath, a small inhale that seemed to clutch at fleeting moments of courage. I found her voice was a whisper, trembling under the weight of implications I could not begin to fathom. Detective Lawson stepped forward slightly, his pragmatic approach shifting into something more compassionate. Can I see what you have? He asked gently. At that moment, I would have given anything for the world to stop spinning. Everything in my universe depended on this fragile moment. The shadows that shrouded Clara grew thicker as her small frame wavered under the scrutiny of the detective and my outstretched hand. With a heavy heart, she unfolded the paper, revealing smeared ink and jerky handwriting, the words a disjointed collage of yearning and fear, the scrawled messages seeming to taunt my perception of reality. It was clearly hastily scribbled, but one phrase leaped off the page: "You must protect him." Charlie, I turned to him, seeing my son's wide, innocent eyes studying the unfolding drama. "Stay right here, okay?" He nodded slowly, confusion blooming in his gaze, but he didn't move. As I strained to read the rest of the note, a tugging sensation twisted in my gut. "Clara, who is this from?" I felt my breath hitch as I considered the possibilities. "Did someone?" "It's not just from anyone," Clara interrupted, her voice low and urgent. "It's from her." A chill cascaded through me, a shiver that resonated in the back of my mind like an alarm bell. "Her?" The woman, she hesitated, biting her lip as she pointed towards the door behind me. "The one I saw the other day." I think she is watching." Panic broke like glass around me, and I felt the detective draw closer, his presence a shield and a question at once. "What woman, Clara?" His tone shifted as he sensed the gravity of a deeper mystery unfurling. "The woman from the park. The one who said I couldn't help Charlie." Clara's words tumbled out like stones, heavy and unyielding. "She gave me the note in secret. I was afraid to tell you. I thought she could a threat," I murmured, feeling nauseous. "Clara, why didn't you tell me before?" Clara shrank back slightly, her small form curling in on itself. "I thought I misunderstood. I didn't want to make things worse." "Worse?" I echoed, horror gripping me as the shadows of a greater danger emerged from the depths of my mind. My instincts screamed for clarity as I fought against the maelstrom of emotions. Detective Lawson was still scanning the note as if it held the key to unlocking the weight pressing down on our lives. I could see the gears turning, the possibilities forming in his mind. "We may need to take this seriously, Mrs. Harlow," he said, his voice noticeably firm. But behind that veneer of professionalism lay an understanding, a shared concern that he wore like armor. Just then, as my heart raced, the front door swung open wider, catching my attention. Suddenly, the evening air bore the chill of something unfathomable. Another figure stepped through the doorway, bathed in shadows again, but this time her silhouette was eerily familiar. It was Mary, the woman from the community meeting. "Hasn't anyone told you?" she said, her voice smooth and dispassionate as she stepped into the dim light of our home. "You're in danger, Mrs. Harlow. And so is your son." Every instinct in me screamed to protect Charlie, to shove him behind me, shield him from whatever was about to unfold. But I remained paralyzed, the emotional weight of uncertainty crushing against my chest, suffocating any hope of finding clarity. "Why are you here?" I managed to ask, my voice low and accusatory, almost a whisper of a cautious plea. Mary's eyes flickered with a complexity I couldn't decipher, but something deeper hung in the air. A foreboding revelation was imminent. "Because you need to know what Clara didn't," she said, taking another step forward, eyes now grave, "about the threats against your child. There are things in motion you can't even begin to understand." With her words coiling around me, fear morphed into a paralyzing dread, the scenery around us fading away like a fragile paper sculpture left too long under the rain. The foundation of my world was cracking, and as the shadows crept closer, I felt the cold grip of an impending storm unlike any I had ever faced. I was on the precipice of losing everything, standing with my son at the edge of the unknown, questioning everything I believed in. The air throbbed with tension as Mary's words settled around us, heavy and suffocating. I couldn't quite meet her gaze, my heart hammering against my ribs, begging me to move, to act, to shield Charlie from whatever danger was lurking just beyond our fragile little world. "Clara, stay with Charlie," I managed to say, my voice tremulous but resolute. I stepped forward, placing myself between them and Mary, every instinct flaring in protectiveness. Mary smiled, but the softness in her expression didn't reach her eyes. "It's not just about protecting him, Mrs. Harlow. It's about understanding why these threats are coming, who is behind them." She paused, scanning my face for comprehension, a flicker of something playful teasing at the corners of her lips. "Especially since you've been chosen." "Chosen?" The word slipped from my lips like a whispered prayer. I felt a thread of dread tightening in my chest. "Chosen for what?" "Something bigger than you realize," she replied cryptically, her voice threading through the suffocating silence. "You have to know the position you hold, the ties to those who have followed you." "What are you talking about?" I shouted, desperation creeping into my tone. I could feel Charlie's frightened eyes on me, and I struggled to maintain my facade, wishing only to anchor his innocence in this sea of chaos. Mary inhaled deeply, as if preparing to unveil something monumental. "You need to listen. Remember the stories I shared at the meeting? About how powers, be they light or dark, simmer under the surface of our community." I could only nod, memories of her colorful illustrations flashing in my mind, the folklore that anchored the townsfolk to their past. Those tales felt particularly dismissive now, warped into something malevolent, especially with Clara's secret note looming ominously by my side. "I thought it was just a story," I stammered, both incredulous and terrified. There was a tempest brewing within me, ripping at the seams of my rationality. "You can't expect me to believe." Mary stepped closer, her sudden intensity striking as she pressed her palm against her chest, the gesture packed with urgency. "It doesn't matter what you believe, Mrs. Harlow, because the truth will unfold whether you're ready or not." In the background, Clara stepped cautiously, her limbs trembling as if the very air around her had turned electrified. She held Charlie's hand, her expression one of sheer concern. I could feel the weight of her worry, somehow piercing through the suffocating tension. "Please, tell us what you know," Clara urged, stepping slightly forward, her vulnerability echoing through the room. "If it has to do with Charlie." Mary's gaze softened, a hint of empathy flashing in her eyes for Clara. "Your connection to Charlie runs deeper than you think. You both are more significant than you'll ever comprehend." "Significant? How?" I snapped, choking on the depth of my confusion. "We're just trying to live our lives. If there is something going on, don't you think we deserve to know? What I'm about to tell you is dangerous." Mary's voice grew low, her tone turning grave. "There are people watching your every move, and they believe that the welfare of your son determines the future of, well, let us just say a lot hangs in the balance." A chill licked at my spine, and desperation drummed painfully against my ribcage. "So what are we supposed to do? Hide? Run away?" "There's no running from this. It's already in motion." Before I could respond, her expression shifted. Clara stepped closer, her small hands gripping Charlie's tighter. "Protect me, please," she whispered, her voice breaking raw and full of desperation. A pang shot through my heart. The way she pleaded reminded me of the earlier days when she had been so lost and afraid. My instincts clamored for reassurance. "Clara, I swear, we're going to face this together," I promised, my voice unwavering. But as the words left me, a chill of uncertainty rippled through me, for it felt like a promise for a battle we were not prepared to wage. "Whatever is unfolding here goes back generations," Mary said, her intensity unwavering. "There are forces that have manipulated this community for too long. You think they've come for revenge? No, they want something from you. Something they believe is rightfully theirs. And now, your son's life hangs in the balance." Just then, the unease thickened, and amid the pounding of my heart, I heard the faint rattling of chains, distant and ghostlike. It seemed to echo the very pulse of disquiet that throbbed through our gathering. Mary's face remained firm, but her eyes darted nervously to the shadows surrounding us. "The people who are watching, they won't give up easily. You must protect Charlie at all costs." As if to emphasize her words, the paper Clara had found slipped from her hand, fluttering to the ground like a dying leaf. The ominous note, now tattered and reminiscent of a warning, swept across the floor and came to a stop at Mary's feet. My heart sank as new realizations washed over me, and a suffocating sense of foreboding took hold. Everything was shifting, and I feared that the fragile bond we had fought to maintain might be severed in an instant. With a heavy heart and a mind swirling with dread, I knelt to retrieve the note, but as I reached for it, for just a fleeting moment, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A flicker of movement outside the window, a shadow darting away from the light. Mary, my voice trembled. Was that? But before I could finish, the lights in our home flickered ominously, plunging us into darkness, a curtain closing over the stage of our lives, shrouding possibilities long buried in twisted fates yet to reveal themselves. In the suffocating darkness, a veil of uncertainty descended, wrapping itself tightly around us like a cold shroud. The sudden loss of light seemed a cruel mockery of our already darkening circumstances. I could hear Clara's breath hitching, a soft, frightened gasp that beckoned my protective instincts. "Charlie," I whispered, the name slipping from my lips like a lifeline. "Are you okay?" I fumbled through the blackness, reaching for my son. I found his hand, small and warm in mine, and clutched it tightly. The comfort of his presence bolstered me, momentarily overshadowing the turmoil brewing within. "What is happening, Mom?" he murmured, confusion lacing his voice. "It's okay, sweetheart. Just stay close to me," I replied, forcing confidence into my tone. But, even as I spoke, the darkness felt pregnant with menace, the silence thick enough to choke on. Mary stood rooted, the uncertainty of our predicament etched across her features, an unsettling blend of authority and fear. "We need to move now. They know you're aware, and they'll come for you," she finally declared, her voice punctuated by a sharp urgency. "Follow me." With my heart racing, I took a breath, steeling myself for the unknown ahead. "Where are we going?" "A place where you'll be safe," she replied, her intensity deepening. "It's not much, but it's a start." As we shuffled through the room, the muted sound of a door creaking open retracted our breaths, and my instinct screamed for a choice: stay or escape. Yet, the grip of maternal instinct clawed at me, rooting me to Charlie's side. "Clara, hold on to him tight," I instructed, threading my fingers through her small hand. "We're stronger together." In the embrace of the shadows, I felt Clara's grip tighten as we all stepped cautiously onto the porch. The world outside was devoid of light, but I could hear the rustling whispers of the wind, carrying unseen secrets through the night. The chilling vulnerability of our exposed existence gripped me, and each step felt as though we were trudging through quicksand. Mary led the way, navigating us through a narrow pathway flanked by towering trees that clawed at the sky like desperate spirits. The air was charged, a palpable tension lingering around us, as if the very earth was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable crash. "Listen," Mary said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you don't understand why you are in danger yet, why you are part of this twisted tale. But you are bound to it. I wish I had more time to explain, but you must trust me." Trust. The word hung in the air, a fragile proposition. How could I trust anyone when uncertainty loomed overhead like an unyielding storm? But looking at Charlie and Clara, I knew I had no choice. "Okay," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "What do we need to do?" Mary paused at a fork in the path, the flickering light of a lantern casting dancing shadows along the rough-hewn stone walls. "We need to find the old sage. He is the last link to truths long obscured. If anyone knows how to protect your son, it will be him." But she swallowed hard. "The journey won't be easy. Others will try to stop you. They aren't just watching, they want to intervene." Before I could respond, a chill skittered across my skin, a sudden rustle in the underbrush cut through the gloom like a knife. In an instant, Mary raised her hand, signaling for us to halt. The stillness that followed was oppressive, and I could feel my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "Stay close," she warned. "Do not make a sound." As if on cue, the branches above us rustled again, this time followed by a low, ominous growl. My heart plummeted. It felt all too clear that we were no longer alone. Shadows crept along the periphery, hunting us. Charlie shifted nervously at my side, and I squeezed his hand, my heart racing with the weight of my responsibility. I could feel Clara shivering next to him, scared and uncertain. "Mary, we can't stay here," I whispered, the words strained and raw. "Just a moment longer," she murmured, a hint of fear flickering in her eyes. "We have to make sure the path is clear." Adrenaline surged through my veins, fueling my desire to protect my son. I scanned our environment, searching for any sign of light or shelter away from the threat hanging just at the edge of my awareness. And then I saw a flicker of movement in the shadows. My heart leapt as a figure emerged from the darkness. A tall silhouette, clad in a billowing cloak, stepped into the dim light of the lantern. "Mary," the figure whispered, voice smooth and deeply resonant. "They're getting closer. You need to leave now." I felt my breath catch as I recognized the figure, a haunting memory from Mary's stories. "No, it can't be." The figure turned slightly, revealing a weathered face lined with age and wisdom, a face I had seen only in folklore. "You must trust what lies ahead," he urged, eyes bright with an unsettling mix of sadness and determination. "Time is short." My world spun as revelations crashed over me like waves, but before I could process this new complexity, the growling deepened, edging closer as the shadows stirred in tandem, poised to close in on us. "Run!" Mary shouted, grabbing Charlie and Clara's hands, ready to bolt back into the night. But just when I thought we might escape, the figure raised a hand to halt us, the flickering light bouncing off their features in a ghostly dance. "Wait," they said, voice cutting through the chaos. "You should know the truth before you leave." Tension enveloped us once more, thick and suffocating. My heart raced, caught between fear and an insatiable hunger for answers. Then the figure stepped closer, eyes burning with an intensity that held a world of secrets. "What you don't know about your son is the reason everything is happening now. And you are closer to understanding than ever." Before I could comprehend the implications of their words, the shadows surged around us, a tide of menace pulling us further into the darkness of the unknown. The chill of the night enveloped us, thick and stifling, as if the darkness sought to swallow us whole. I could hardly comprehend the mystery hanging in the air, the figure before us seemingly weaving together the threads of fate that had led us to this precipice. My mind whirled, caught between retaining rationality and succumbing to the chaos that rippled through the shadows. "What don't I know?" I could barely form the words, my voice shaking, heavy with fear yet edged with curiosity. The growling grew louder, pressing against us like a frigid wall, urging us to act quickly as if time itself was unraveling. The figure, was it the sage Mary had mentioned? Met my desperate gaze with a firmness that both comforted and unsettled me. "He bears the marks of an ancient bond, one that connects him to forces beyond our understanding. You need to recognize how deep this current runs." Behind me, Clara let out a quiet whimper, and Charlie squeezed my hand even tighter as if sensing the impending storm. I needed to shield them, to protect their innocence from the weight of what lay ahead. But as the shadowy figures crawled nearer, I felt a swell of determination. I wouldn't let fear dictate our fate. "Please," I urged, my voice steadier now, "I need to know how to keep my children safe." At that moment, the sage stepped closer, the flickering light illuminating shadows that danced across his face. "Your son possesses a gift of purpose intertwined with the very fabric of this world. But his path is fraught with danger. Those who seek to control that power will stop at nothing." "Control?" Clara's voice broke through, and I felt the weight of her innocence tugging at my heartstrings. "What do you mean, like superheroes?" The figure's gaze softened as they looked at Clara, a fleeting reminiscence flashing in their eyes. "A child's imagination seeks light in darkness. What you see as heroes and villains is really about the struggle for balance." His voice lowered conspiratorially, as if drawing us all into a sacred secret. "And tonight, you must choose to be swept away by the tide, or to turn and stand your ground." Before I could respond, Mary, her expression hardened with urgency, motioned for us to retreat. "We don't have time for this. The shadows are closing in." "Trust me," I murmured to the children, resisting the panic threatening to slip past my carefully constructed facade. I wanted to scream a million questions, to demand the sage divulge everything, but the growling drew closer, a guttural promise of what awaited if we lingered. "Remember," the sage added, urgency creeping back into his tone, "your son's strength lies not in what he possesses but in the choices you make together. Guard him fiercely. The truth is as much your ally as it is your burden." Before any sense of clarity could settle, we turned to flee, the darkness now alive around us, its breath hot and relentless. I could hear the pounding of footsteps behind us, echoing the drum of my heartbeat as we plunged deeper into the night, each step feeling like a frantic dance with death. Fear flickered in Charlie's eyes as we dashed through the dense underbrush, but I squeezed his hand a little tighter, trying to communicate my unwavering love and protection. The air was thick with foreboding, yet in the chaos, a flicker of warmth caught my attention, a distant glow cutting through the impenetrable blackness. "There!" I shouted, pointing ahead. "We need to reach that light." The glow pulsed invitingly, a stark contrast to the menacing shadows chasing us. Just as relief began to wash over me, a sudden cry erupted from the darkness, a voice I dared not recognize, laced with anguish and intent. "Charlie!" A familiar voice resonated, sending chills down my spine, freezing me in place. "Mom! Who is that?" Clara gasped, her small fingers trembling in mine. "No," I murmured, disbelief flooding my senses as I darted my gaze around. The shadows parted slightly, revealing the source of the voice. My breath hitched as I struggled to process the impossible before me. There, emerging from the shadowed haze, was the last person I'd ever expected to see, a figure from the past, one I had left behind in a fractured reality. Someone who should have never been part of this journey. Yet here they stood, a lifeline cast from a world I thought I had severed ties with, just as the darkness threatened to swallow us whole. "Charlie!" They called again, desperation streaking their tone. And in that moment, the ground beneath me shifted, appending every certainty I thought I understood. "Who are you?" I shouted, fear morphing into a volatile cocktail of confusion and betrayal. "Why are you here?" "Because," they breathed, stepping forward, a beacon of sunlight tucked amid shadows, "I knew you would need me." As I stood poised between disbelief and fear, the growling crescendoed, a reminder of the darkness nipping at our heels. The light flickered, and I felt the grip of fate tighten around us, threatening to unravel everything. As I wrestled with the profound truth that loomed, breathless and unyielding, the past had come crashing back, a jagged shard that could cut deep. I could no longer predict the next move, and the weight of everything that was at stake pressed down on me like an anchor, dragging me into the depths of the unknown. The air crackled with tension, and I could barely hear my own thundering heartbeat over the growling encroaching upon us. The figure standing at the periphery of my past felt like a ghost, a shimmering apparition with the power to reshape everything I thought I knew and desired. I could barely comprehend the implications, the intertwined destinies that had now come to a furious brink. "Mom, who is that?" Clara pressed, her eyes wide with confusion and fear, sensing the upheaval churning within me. "Stay back, Clara. Both of you!" I shouted, shielding my children instinctively as the shadows shifted, eager to devour any semblance of safety we might have clung to. "It's okay," the figure spoke gently, their tone unexpectedly soothing amidst the chaos. Dark eyes locked onto mine, searching for a flicker of recognition. "I'm not here to hurt you. You need to trust me." Trust. The bitter taste of that word clung to my tongue. I felt like I was teetering on the precipice of a precipice, one misstep away from losing not just myself, but everything I had desperately fought to safeguard. "You have no right to be here," I whispered, as if conceding to a battle I didn't want to wage. My breath hitched. "You don't know what I've sacrificed to keep them safe." "Sacrifice?" The figure's brow furrowed with something akin to empathy. "You think you're the only one?" Their voice cracked, and in that single moment, raw vulnerability momentarily eclipsed their intent. "You don't know what it's cost me to find you." Before I could reply, the gathering shadows surged forward, an ominous roar reverberating through the forest. I instinctively tightened my grip on my children, and we backed away, inching toward the ghostly glow that had beckoned us. I felt the warmth of Charlie's small hand clutch mine and Clara's trembling form press against my side, anchoring me in this tumult of emotion and fear. The light, as I began to say, only to be cut off by the encroaching night closing in around us. Shadows loomed larger, swirling like dark phantoms hungry for our despair. The glimmer ahead flickered ominously, but it was a choice I felt compelled to make. Whatever this figure was, they couldn't shield us from the greater threat looming beyond. "Help us! Please!" Clara's voice, filled with raw innocence, broke through the chaos, shattering the bitterness that had begun to solidify in my heart. In that moment, I felt an unexpected pang of resolve rip through me. If my children were asking for help, how could I deny them? The figure seemed to sense that shift, their expression shifting from desperation to an unwavering determination. "I know how to get you to safety," they asserted, with a glint of knowledge I couldn't dismiss. "But you must listen and trust me." Trust is a fragile thing these days, I shot back, but the urgency in their voice left no room for hesitation. Glancing at Clara and Charlie, I swallowed hard, recognizing the fear and uncertainty reflected in their eyes. Fine, I relented, barely able to believe the words that escaped my lips. But on one condition: you tell us everything. A nod of compliance, though it seemed like a gamble that could tip the balance irrevocably. The figures in the night hissed, inches away from us, staving off our escape. Come, they urged, leading us away from the swell of darkness. The moment we turned, I felt a flicker of hope ignite, the kind that blooms in the heart of despair. As we hurried forward, the glow blossoming brighter the closer we got, I took a moment to glance back at the figure that represented everything I thought I had left behind. I want to believe you, I called out, trying to bridge the chasm of our fractured past with the current reality of our peril. But no more secrets. Not now. The figure paused, a heaviness settling upon them, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw the shadows shudder around us, sensing the weight of our truth. I promise, they replied, the intention in their voice grounding my fleeting hope. I'll explain when we're safe, but right now no more time. As we fell into step, the urgency pounding at our heels, I was reminded of how quickly hope could be crushed underfoot. But as the shroud of darkness clawed at us, I felt a flicker of something, a connection binding our fates together. The fate of a mother, a child, and a haunting figure from the past. We burst into a clearing illuminated by a soft, ethereal glow that stood in stark contrast to the menacing shadows behind us. The figure motioned for us to huddle close. This is a safe space for now, they assured us, their face growing earnest. Just as the hairs on my neck prickled with the impending danger, the shadows receded slightly, and I dared to hope that we had won a critical pause in our war against the encroaching darkness. But as I looked over at the figure, awaiting the revelation that would unravel us further or finally make sense of this chaotic journey, I was struck by an unexpected noise, a soft, distressed voice whispering just beyond the trees. The voice carried a familiar strain, almost melodic, stirring long-buried memories I had yet to confront, binding pain with unrelenting curiosity. Charlie, is that you? In that moment, my joy morphed into horror as clarity took root amidst the turmoil. It wasn't Charlie's safety I should have been worrying about, but the possibility of losing him forever. What could lie ahead, beyond the light? What secrets had I glossed over in my desperate bid to shield my family? With my heart thundering in my chest, I turned to the figure, desperate for answers but terrified of the truth that might come crashing upon us like a wild wave, searching for those most vulnerable. The shadows were still lurking, waiting, just as I was. But the darkness was no longer my only concern. The consequences of what lay ahead haunted my every breath. As the voice emerged from the night once more, Charlie, don't leave me. I felt the icy grip of fate latch onto my soul. I realized then that this was no longer a question of survival but a reckoning with the very essence of our entwined journeys. And no matter the outcome, I braced for impact. The clearing's light flickered like a heartbeat, casting elongated shadows that twisted and writhed around us as if nature itself was holding its breath. Clara pressed her face into my side, her warmth contrasting sharply with the chill creeping into the air. I could barely even recognize the voice that had called for Charlie, and the echoes of that haunting melody clung to my thoughts, warping the precious memory of our time together into something darker. Charlie, please don't go. The voice carried a sense of urgency that sent heat coursing through my veins. An ache of desperation mingled with the fear that had nested deep within me since this madness began. But as I scanned the forest surrounding us, the shadows hinted at deeper threats lurking beyond the glow. What is happening? Clara whimpered, her small fingers clutching at my shirt, seeking reassurance I wasn't sure I could provide. I forced my gaze away from the trees, trying to appear more stalwart than I felt. The voice, I murmured, swiping a hand across my forehead to push back the gathering dread. It sounds like I hesitated, not wanting to utter the name that weighed heavily on my heart. But the name was already on my tongue, raw and sharp. It sounds like Shira. The figure, still shrouded in that ephemeral glow, exchanged a quick glance with me, their eyes dark pools of hidden knowledge. Shira? They echoed, their voice barely above a whisper. I could feel the ripple of anticipation shimmering in the air. Yes, I pressed, desperation clawing at my throat. She is my friend. She was with us when everything changed. But how could she be here? How could you have found her? I could feel my heart racing, each thump pounding like an echo in a canyon. Hope, Fear, disbelief die in that moment. The figure hesitated, clearly piecing together fragments of a past that I had buried deep within myself. Shira was taken from you, but she may still be close. If she has found her way here, then their voice trailed off, and I could see the weight of that thought press upon them like a great burden. Then what? I urged, my nerves raw and exposed. Then it means that the shadows, whatever is hunting you, are directly connected to her, they said, the truth flashing in their eyes like lightning through a stormy sky. You need to choose, now, whether to risk everything to find her. I squeezed Clara closer, unwilling to let her feel the full brunt of the turmoil inside. The thought of Shira, of what we had shared, of her laughter intermingling with our sorrows, sent shocks of longing through my veins. Yet, that longing was quickly consumed by memories of the darkness, a darkness I had spent my life trying to shield my children from. Can't we just leave? Clara's voice mumbled into my side, breaking through my violent whirl of thoughts. I want to go home. Home. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. Home had become a ghost of what it used to be, a place filled with warmth and laughter, now tainted by uncertainty and anguish. We can't, sweet girl, I whispered. Not yet. Then we must go, the figure said, pulling me from my reverie. If there is a chance Shira is in danger, we must move now. Danger? How do I know you aren't leading us into a trap? My heart raced as I fought against trusting yet another figure entwined with my past. I can't guarantee safety, but the shadows won't wait, they replied, their voice edged with urgency. If Shira is indeed close, she will need your help. You know this deep down. I felt a swell of emotions, torn between loyalty to my children and a fierce commitment to my friend. Each heartbeat echoed the growing storm between them, a tempest brewing in my chest fueled by the memories of Shira and the laughter we had shared before it shattered. Fine, I said, my voice resolute despite the trembling of my spirit. But I cannot stand by and lose Charlie. We will find him. Just trust me. The figure's gaze locked onto mine as if they could feel my doubts bleeding into the space between us. We began to move, the pulsating glow of the clearing fading as the shadows pressed closer, encircling us again. My heart was a drum, resonating in sync with my frantic thoughts as we followed the specter of my past deeper into the unknown. Each step reverberated with the tension of unfinished stories and hidden truths. Then, without warning, another plea shattered the air, clearer now and more frantic. Mom! Help! Charlie's voice broke through the heavy stillness like glass shattering underfoot. Panic shot through me, surging like wildfire, igniting my thoughts. Charlie! I shouted as if my voice alone could draw him back to me. The figure's hand closed around my wrist, pulling me back as I stumbled. We have to be cautious. The shadows will do anything to isolate us. The shadows. In their clamoring darkness, they whispered ancient secrets that entwined with the safety of my children and my friend. As I steadied my breath, a thought struck me, as sharp and incensed as a lightning bolt. Could the very shadows that hunted us be born from the secrets we held close? Is this all connected? I pressed, my heart a chaotic mix of anger and vulnerability. Can you help us? I need to know how to protect my children. The price seems too high. The figure paused, their expression deepening with sorrow, filled with understanding and truth, the kind that pierced through despair. I'm afraid that what binds you all together is a cycle that needs to be broken, a choice yet unmade. With that, we plunged deeper into the darkness, the echo of Charlie's voice fading into the shadows as the weight of the unknown pressed in on us and the voice of the past resurfaced once more, inviting me toward a reckoning I could no longer avoid. Charlie! I shouted again, the only sound that remained to pierce through the suffocating darkness, as the fabric of my fate unfurled around me, threading the consequences of my past with the potential of what was to come. Whatever awaited on the other side of this ominous path, I knew in my soul that no matter the price, I would save him, even if it meant facing the darkness lying within myself. The shadows crept around us, heavy and oppressive. I pushed my way through the underbrush, Clara's small body pressed tightly against my side, her breath quick and shallow. Each heartbeat amplified the fear surging within me, it pulsed like a living thing, twisting my insides with uncertainty. Mom, Clara's voice quivered, why is this happening? Why can't we just go home? How could I explain to her the home that now felt like a phantasmagoria of the past, a realm shadowed by loss and uncertainty? We will find Charlie, I promised, my voice trembling with the weight of the lie. I had to believe it, for her sake as much as mine. Mom, I feel something. Clara's voice faltered as she looked up at me, her expression a mixture of fear and confusion. In those wide, trusting eyes, I saw the reflection of my own turmoil. I wished more than anything to shield her from this agony. The second that loomed like a predator, lingering just out of sight. Suddenly, the ground beneath us trembled, and a chill rushed through the air, wrapping around my throat like a noose. I stumbled, gripping Clara tighter, as the figure, the specter of my past shrouded in that eerie glow, halted, their gaze fixed beyond us, as if detecting an unseen thrumming in the very earth. My heart raced, the darkness whispering its taunts again. What is it? I breathed, each word scraping against the panic clawing its way up my chest. They're coming, the figure said, their voice laced with dread. We must move faster. With every hurried footstep, I could feel the shadows tightening around us, swarming like a mass of whispers threatening to pull us into their depths. Each breath filled with the stench of fear and despair felt like a tangible weight, anchoring me to the ground. Charlie! The call escaped my lips again, a raw, unfiltered plea. The only beacon in this storm of uncertainty and chaos was the hope that my son was still alive, that he could hear me, that he knew I was searching for him. Mom, I can't. Clara cried out, her little legs struggling to keep up with my frantic pace. I'm scared. Her vulnerability only deepened the anguish in my heart. I knelt down beside her, our eyes locking in that moment. I'm scared too, Clara. But we need to stay together, okay? We will get through this. It was nothing more than a fragile promise, yet as I embraced her, the warmth of her small body against mine offered a brief reprieve from the cold clutches of despair entwined around us. What if we run into those shadows? Clara whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustle of leaves. I took a moment, gathering courage from deep within. Then we faced them together. I won't let anything happen to you or your brother. The truth was, I didn't know if I could fulfill that promise. The shadows were unknown forces, mercurial in nature, temptations as much as threats. The weight of secrets and regrets pressed heavily on my shoulders, the truth of my own past threatening to unravel. Are you sure? There were so many doubts swirling in her innocent eyes, fears I longed to banish. Just then, a flicker of light broke through the gloom ahead. It was faint, a ghostly glimmer that beckoned us. The figure turned, their tension easing for a moment before dread shadowed their features once more. We'll need to be careful. The light could be a way out or a trap. Please, I begged, desperation spilling into my voice. If there's a chance Charlie is out there, just guide us. They nodded, eyes grave, as we moved cautiously toward the flicker, my pulse echoing with every step we took, my insides tangling with nerves and fear. Closer now, I could see it was a fire, its light flickering defiantly against the encroaching darkness. My heart soared at the sight of warmth, even as doubts warred in my mind. What if it's not him? What if it's something else? I whispered, trembling while imagining the worst. Only one way to find out, the figure replied, his tone steady yet laced with foreboding. As we neared, shadows betrayed their presence, rising like sentinels at the edge of the light. The flickering flame illuminated familiar shapes, people. Figures huddled together, their whispers weaving through the air, a jumble of fear and familiarity. I took a step closer, squinting. Charlie! My breath hitched as the realization hit. There, at the forefront, was a form I recognized all too well, crouched near the fire, a visible wave of relief washing over me. But it was not Charlie who leaped forward to greet me. Instead, a girl with dark hair and striking green eyes emerged from the shadows, one I hadn't seen in years. Shira! Mom! Charlie's voice broke through the fog, but before I could reach for him, his gaze darted to Shira. I thought she was gone. Tension crackled in the air as our eyes met, and I felt the weight of painful memories press down like a suffocating fog. A rekindled bond with a friend who once filled my life with laughter, a bond laced with the very danger that pursued us. Why are you here? I demanded, my heart racing with a concoction of emotions, relief, joy, but also a tremor of dread. Shira stepped forward, her expression pained yet resolute. I came to find you. Something's wrong, and before she could finish, the shadows flickered dangerously close, swirling as if eager to consume us whole. The air thickened, heavy with anticipation and the weight of unsaid words. In that moment, dread washed over me anew. Could Shira be a part of the darkness that surrounded us? Or was she the key to defeating it? Then, just as I felt ready to implore her for answers, another piercing voice broke through the gathering storm. "Mom! Are you there?" Charlie's fearful cry hung in the air, laden with uncertainty, as if our thread of hope was fragile enough to snap. And with that, everything began to spiral, and I felt the very ground shift beneath us. The confrontation was too close for comfort. The secrets that had been pervasive, hidden in shadows, were now out in the open, a tempest threatening to engulf us. "Don't move!" The figure hissed, their eyes flashing with urgency as they scanned the darkness. But I was frozen. The truth was laid out before me, a murky abyss eclipsing the flames of certainty, and just like that, I was left teetering on the brink of chaos, the light of hope flickering dangerously as the shadows twirled around us, ever so hungry. The air crackled with energy, and I could feel Clara's small hand trembling against mine. My heart raced as I wrestled with the tumult within, torn between the profound relief of finding Shira and the creeping horror cloaked in uncertainty. Shadows danced closer, tendrils swirling like an imminent storm, ready to pull us into their insatiable embrace. "Mom! Please!" Charlie shouted again, his voice laced with panic, an echo that twisted my heart into knots. My instincts flared to life. I had to shield him, protect him from the darkness creeping ever nearer. "Shira!" I urged, desperation clawing at my throat. "What have you done? Why are you here?" I could hardly stop myself from accusing her, my emotions in a tempestuous whirl. The memories of our laughter faded into the criticism of her absence, yet I could not deny the bond that still flickered between us, intertwined with both love and the threads of pain. "I came looking for you for Charlie," she managed, her voice steady yet strained. I heard whispers, felt the shadows drawing near. I knew something was coming, something terrible connected to you and him. My breath caught. The truth sat heavy in the space between us, dissolving like the fog that cloaked the eerie forest. If Shira was drawn to our struggles, then perhaps she was part of the answers we desperately sought. "Then you know what's at stake," I said, my heart thrumming. The shadows thrummed in response, as if they too were aware of the tension and urgent truths weaving through the air. Behind me, Clara clutched my side, pressing closer, seeking refuge in the safety of my proximity. As the shadows swirled, I could almost hear their hisses, their serpentine whispers promising comfort yet cloaked in deception. But we didn't have time to unravel their dark intentions. "We need to find Charlie, Shira," I insisted, resolved yet pained. "Whatever brought you here, we have to face it together." Before she could reply, a deafening growl erupted from the darkness, sharp and sinister, raising the hairs on the back of my neck. The shadows lunged, their shapes morphing into a thick mass that writhed and twisted, threatening to cut us off from the path ahead. "Run!" The figure from before commanded, a flash of urgency flickering across their face as they pulled us toward the flickering flames. "We can't let them take us." "Charlie!" I shouted, my heart dropping as if to eternity. The flames flickered wildly, illuminating the fear etched across Shira's face as she tightened the grip around Clara's hand. The shadows slithered closer, hungry for our despair, and the very air felt thick with anticipation. "Don't look back," Shira urged, her eyes wide and serious. "Just keep moving toward the light. We need to reach him now." But the cries of my son echoed hauntingly in my ears, a melody of fear that fueled my determination. We pressed onward, urgency propelling us as we dodged shadows that seemed as if they were alive, reaching out like terrible fingers. Just as I thought we could reach the safety of the firelight, the shadows coalesced, forming an impenetrable wall that split us from the warmth. I could feel the raw panic rise again, coursing through my veins like a wildfire. "No! Let us through!" I screamed, pounding my fists against their oppressive presence, but the shadows merely chuckled, a cacophony of hissing voices that echoed cruelly, tearing at my resolve. Behind me, I could hear Clara's fearful whimpers, and Shira's soothing voice struggling to calm both her and my unease. "Keep your focus, we can't lose each other now," she said, though her voice trembled alongside mine. "Charlie needs me. He can't be far." I could scarcely bear the thought of losing him. He was my light, my hope, entangled in this labyrinth of shadows. Just then, through the swirling darkness, a familiar glow flashed in the corner of my eye, a faint, flickering light, almost like a beacon reaching out. "That way!" I cried, turning instinctively to the light. We sprinted, hearts thundering in unison as we darted toward the beacon. But as we drew closer, the shadows writhed more fiercely, twisting and clawing, eager to devour. I ran faster, fueled by a potent mix of terror and maternal instinct, pushing past the pain clenching my heart. Then, almost like a lie in the wind, I heard it again, a voice, soft yet filled with urgency. "Mom! Help me!" It was Charlie, calling my name with desperation that ignited every protective fiber within me. "I'm coming!" I shouted, lunging forward. The shadows surged, clinging desperately to my legs, threatening to drag me under. With every ounce of strength in my body, I tore forward, the warmth of the flickering light wrapping around me like a cocoon. "I can't leave him," I murmured, instinctively turning back, my heart now torn. But then I caught sight of the formidable figure, the one that had borne such weight upon our journey. Their expression was fierce, and they stepped forward, parting the shadows with a raw power I hadn't realized was intertwined with them. "You must! Now!" they growled, their voice insistent, almost primal. "Follow the light." With one last push, I leaped into the illuminated space, the darkness swallowing any lingering doubts. I landed hard, but we were through. I straightened, looking around for Charlie. The warmth of the flames danced around us, illuminating a small clearing. And standing before us, tangled in darkness yet flickering with hope, was my son. He stood a few steps away, cloaked in shadows but alive, the glow of flickering light reflecting in his fear-filled eyes. "Mom!" he shouted, his small hands reaching for me, and in that moment, I felt everything I had been fighting for coalesce into something tangible. I surged forward, desperate to close the distance that lay between us. "Charlie! I'm here!" I was so scared my words tumbled out, flooding the air with every ounce of fear I had bottled up. In an instant, my arms wrapped around him, holding him tight, heart pounding in synchrony with his. But yet, darkness seeped around us, threatening to consume our reunion. I could feel the shadows pressing against the light, closing in. "What are we going to do?" Charlie asked, trembling against my side. The figure moved to my side, silhouetted against the brightness. "Listen to me, it won't end unless we confront the darkness together," they urged. "This fight isn't just for survival, it's for the choice of who you wish to be." I felt Shira's presence nearby, her determination visible as she nodded. "We can do this. We have to fight back." My own resolve began to swell, the love I held dear igniting a flame that pushed against the shadows. As if stirred by my intentions, the encroaching darkness hesitated, murmuring softly. It was almost like it could sense the change within us. I took a deep breath, gathering courage, recognizing that our strength lay in our unity. "Together," I declared, holding Charlie close, aware of Clara's small form next to him, trembling but resolved. "Together!" Shira echoed, her voice steady. Then the figure added, "Ties that bind can grant strength, not just terror. Stand firm." The shadows recoiled slightly, the flickering flames growing stronger around us, fueled by our mutual strength. I could sense that whatever was hunting us feared our bond, feared our light. "Believe!" I cried out, my voice ringing with conviction. "We are a family. We are stronger than you." The shadows writhed, their whispers turning to roars as uncertainty shaded their confidence. The power that surged within us seemed unmistakable. As fear dissipated, we stood firm and united. I could feel the warmth radiating from our joined hands, a force that refused to be extinguished. As our collective light blazed forward, I felt the shadows beginning to falter. Bound together, we could break free. We could reclaim our destiny. "Let them see us!" I shouted, channeling all that I could muster. "Let them remember our names!" With that, the shadows recoiled, retreating as if our light had pierced through their veil of uncertainty. The light within us grew brighter, illuminating our surroundings like a beacon. And in that moment of profound release, the echoes of the past, the stories, the pain, the joy all intertwined catapulted us into a new understanding. We were not just survivors in battle, We were warriors wielding love and light against the darkest of nights. As the last remnants of shadow slithered away, we emerged into an expansive clearing, bathed in a glow that felt like a promise of renewal. I turned to look at Charlie, whose wide eyes shone with awe and bewilderment. As the dust of battle settled around us, I felt the enormity of what we had accomplished. Not just a fleeting victory, but a deep-seated understanding that together, we could face whatever darkness lay ahead. "Mom," Charlie whispered, gripping my hand tightly. "Are we safe now?" Looking at my son, the warmth emanating from his little heart filled the void left behind by fear and uncertainty. "For now, we are safe," I said, my voice a gentle promise. "And together, we'll face anything." Behind us, Shira smiled, her fierce spirit mingling with mine as the past peeled away into what truly mattered: love, unity, and family. As whispers of dawn began to stretch across the sky, intertwining reality and the remnants of our shared journey, I felt my heart swell, a flicker of hope that whispered softly, "We are never truly lost." In the embrace of the rising sun, I looked into my children's eyes, love anchoring us against an uncertain future. No matter the shadows we faced, we would stand united together. We were invincible. And just as the warmth of dawn enveloped us, I realized our journey had only begun, a new story emerging, forever intertwined, marked by resilience and love. The sun shone brightly on the horizon as the last words echoed in my heart, a promise that would carry us home. "Together, we'll always find our way."